Okay, let's start now. Good afternoon. Is everyone okay? Yes, good afternoon. Welcome you all, dear panelists, distinguished guests, and ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Justice International Women and Justice Summit of KADEM. You know, KADEM is an association for women and democracy, and KADEM is seeking for women's rights on equal, just, fair, and responsible understanding. And every 2 years, KADEM is organizing this kind of huge international summits, justice and international women and justice summits. And in these summits, we have opportunity to discuss very different issues. And in this year's issue, we will be discussing cultural codes of women. And here, specifically for this panel series, it's lifestyle and construction of culture, and specifically here with our distinguished speakers, we will be talking about visible and invisible actors of modern times. So we have very distinguished panelists, but let me introduce myself first. My name is Meryem İlayda Atlas. I'm a journalist, I'm a board member of TRT, and I am also working as a volunteer for KADEM. I'm proud of it. And you know that TRT is also the national broadcaster of Turkish radio and television. And before start, let me introduce very shortly my panelists. Start from my right, Belkıs Abdülkadir. She's coming from USA, and she's an athlete director and a motivational speaker. And also we have Waad El-Khatib. So she's also an award-winning filmmaker, a director, and activist. And also we have another activist and a filmmaker, award-winning filmmaker, Rizvan Hamidi. She's also a journalist. She has a very long period of career. And also the most handsome and most known actor, everybody I think that already know you, Reşat Strik. He is also an actor known in worldwide and in Turkey as well. Welcome you all. We're very happy to be with you here. And before we start, I would like to take this opportunity to express my special thanks to KADEM and Ministry of Family and Social Policies for organizing such an event, because these events are bringing different people together and giving us a chance to discuss women affairs. Because when we're talking about it's women movements and women rights, it's not only about something to be done, and you know, there's no country in the world that we already reached women's rights and it's stopped. While life is changing, different challenges are happening for women. And also these different challenges creating different measures that we have to deal with and we have to discuss. For example, social media is one of them. And while we're just talking about women's and women's rights, it's a huge process. It's a huge development, and it's a very timely development. So while organizing this kind of events and having the opportunity to discuss all of these, we also, on the other hand, making a great contribution for the entire process. I hope that our panel also will make a great contribution for the women's rights for more than 2 centuries, you know. So back to our discussion, some technical issues. We have 1.5 hours. And 1 hour will be like moderating session, and half hour will be Q&A session. I announced it in Turkish in the beginning, but I'm again telling that the questions is, it will be happy if you write down your questions and pass over here, and I will pick up among them. So we have extra half an hour to discuss your questions with our panelists. So, and also, for my panelists, we have approximately 15 to 20 minutes of each people, but I want you to, like in 5 minutes with round questions that can be, we can talk, it can be interactive and a dynamic session by different questions. So let's start with Belkıs. Belkıs, you are at the age of 4 when you pick up a ball. And you have a professional career as a basketball player. Wow, I said when you just said this, it's very amazing. It's very proud for a Muslim woman. In Turkey, we have a lot of deficits about this kind of women representation in these different parts of sports. So you played basketball as a professional career in the USA for years. And then you want to continue your career in Europe. But you couldn't do that because of the International Basketball Federation's rule on wearing headgears. So it's not about headgear, but it's, indirectly it's about hijab. So you cannot continue your professional career as a hijabi, but you didn't give up. So you became an advocate of fighting for what is imposed over women for sportswear. And also you raised your voice, especially specifically to the Basketball Federation, International Basketball Federation, FIBA, to uplift this ban. And also, you didn't stop, of course. You're now training young girls as a basketball. You are also directing them. You are also dealing with basketballs, and you just want to create a better life for the next generation. So this is very inspiring, I should say. This is very proudful. And also my first question is about your attitude exactly as a norm breaker in sports. And I want you to talk about a bit yourself, your experience, and how you see being a Muslim woman as a kind of norm breaker, being a basketball player in a very different society. Please, floor is yours.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum and hello. Thank you for the introduction. And so as you said, I formerly was a basketball player. And when I went to play professional basketball in the FIBA leagues, which is the International Basketball Federation, they told me that I could hurt somebody with my hijab by playing. But before that, I played with my hijab in university in the US for 4 years. I never hurt myself. I never hurt anyone else because it's a piece of material. So when I was faced with this issue, I had to ultimately choose between my faith, Islam, being a Muslim, and my passion. And it was one of the most difficult decisions that I ever had to make. So in the end, I did decide to fight against FIBA and force them to uplift this ban, but it took 4 years. And so during that time, I had to sacrifice my career. I had to make this difficult decision of faith and sport. But on the flip side, and the beauty of this issue, was that I was able to break stereotypes and the norms of sport in the US.
It's also, these norms are not for basketball. This is in every kind of sport. There are some norms that are not related with the sport itself, isn't it?
Yeah, so when we talk about sport, the main issue when it comes to Muslim women is the uniform. So in volleyball in the US, they wear almost like undergarments, underwear. It's really little shorts. In basketball, they wear the shorts and they wear no sleeves. In soccer, you wear small shorts. So when you're a Muslim woman...
In tennis as well. Has nothing to do with tennis playing.
In tennis, you see the skirts. They flip up sometimes and you're revealed in a lot of different ways. And so they're very strict on these uniforms in the US. And so in order to have to play, you have to have a piece of paper that says you're Muslim. So when I played, I had to walk around with a paper and give it to the referee so that they would say, oh, now I know why she has to wear these clothes. But it's archaic, it's old, it shouldn't have to be that way. So what I did realize that when I did step on the court with my hijab and my long pants and my long sleeves, the people in the audience would first be like, what is she wearing? What is this girl doing here? How can she play? And then when I make a shot or I cross somebody over, they're like, the girl with the clothes can play, this is amazing. And then they ask me questions. Why do you have to wear this? So I was able to teach people about Islam.
Isn't it a bit kind of discrimination because everybody is looking at you, so you feel as a young people especially, you feel the pressure that you have to be the best. That because everybody is watching me, is it happened to you?
Absolutely, it was pressure every time I stepped on the court. And I used that pressure as energy to play the best that I could play. However, when I would get stares or I would get laughed at, people would yell things from the audience at me, I would get upset, but I had to show them through the way I played to almost like shut them up or make them be quiet and to get their respect.
Well, you talk about your own experience. What can you tell about the other sports and in general, the minority, especially Muslim women, are feeling the pressure in this way in different areas of sports or in different areas of life?
I think it has to come from internal. So when you are different, and when you look different, not even only Muslim women, but anyone who chooses to stand out and be different, you have to have this internal strength to push forward. Because if you don't have that drive, especially in sport as an athlete, you have to have this drive to keep going. If I were to let FIBA, who told me I couldn't play because they wanted to keep the game religiously neutral, and they told me that I could hurt somebody with my hijab, if I let that stop me, then where would I be today? I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be speaking to you all about how to break these stereotypes and these norms in sports or in whatever field you may be in.
And you became a motivational speaker then, and I hope that you're just asking for a better world for young Muslim girls, especially seeking to do this kind of sports. And you want to show a video to share a video with us.
Yes.
Could you please, we can show the video and we can watch it together and then we'll be talking about it.
I'm trying to think how I can word it, because it's really just a feeling that I feel. Everything that I have is just 2 years ago. And in a way, you're still kind of telling the same story. If that opportunity opened up, I would play. But I'm still kind of battling that battle.
It was a historic night in Springfield.
Senior Bilkis Abdul-Qadir blew Rebecca Lobo's scoring record out of the water.
I mean, anything is possible. Never give up, practice, your dreams come true, basically.
I literally graduated, went home, gathered all my bags, and went to the airport. So that's how fast things were going.
Where's Bilkis? Right here. Stand up, Bilkis, just so that I want everybody to know. She's got heels on. She's 5'5". She's an athlete on her way to Memphis. Bilkis is an inspiration not simply to Muslim girls. She's an inspiration to all of us.
Bilkis Abdul-Qadir has been invited to the Pro-Am Combines. These events give the top college seniors in the country a chance to be evaluated by foreign coaches.
I wasn't ready for what was about to happen, you know, like I was just trying to play.
For the first time in her playing career, Bilkis Abdul-Qadir has hit a roadblock. Basketball's governing body, FIBA, has ruled that bans players from wearing equipment that may cause injury to others, including headwear, hair accessories, and jewelry.
In the wake of terrorist attacks in Paris and San Bernardino, for these historic figures, just as for the other 5 million plus Muslims in the United States, this has been an especially visible month, when their faith and world events have echoed across American society, making this question a complex one to answer. What is it like to be a Muslim athlete in the United States today?
It's hard being a young Muslim woman in America. It takes strength to walk outside and look different than everybody else.
I pray that it gets better, but I think, you know, there's so many mindsets that would have to be changed.
People kind of look at you different when they see Muslim women. They have this stereotype that they're quiet, that they're submissive, that they're not supposed to do these certain things. Everybody thinks, yeah, it's just a sport. But when I play basketball, I worry about nothing. It takes me out of real life. I was gonna finish school, I was gonna play basketball, I was gonna do all this stuff, and now it's just like a huge question mark. Right now, I don't know who I am. Am I anybody without basketball, you know? Am I still myself?
Well, one last question for you, Belkis. By the way, your name, Belkis Abdul-Qadir, is also a common name in Turkey we use. So you will be very familiar with us, you know. But you are living in a very different culture, and this is a very ongoing and unsolvable problem of minorities. And as far as I see, you didn't experience discrimination in USA, but it happened to you in Europe. But while you are raising your voice up, it means that you are also reconstructing the society. So how do you see the contribution of the minority women, especially, for reconstructing their societies, creating new problems, but also creating new problems for them, but also bringing new solutions? What is your motivation here? How do you see that?
My motivation is honestly those girls that you saw playing basketball for the first time ever. My motivation is when I teach a girl how to shoot, she makes her first shot, and it changes her life because she never had this opportunity. And so I wouldn't even say that the minority were bringing problems. Mm-hmm. We're bringing power, and we're changing the game. And that is not only in sport, that is in every different realm in life. In the US, outside of the US. So when it comes to any woman that looks different in their field, whether it's in the hospital, whether it's in the courtroom, whether it's on any playing field that a sport is on, we change the game because we look different. We're breaking stereotypes. We're representing not only ourselves, especially as Muslim women. When they see us with the hijab, we represent an entire community. And that's the beauty of looking different in the fields that you're in. So I don't want people to think that we're less than or that we're at a disadvantage. We're changing the game every time we represent what we love and what we're passionate about.
Lovely. Yes. And the most important part is that not problems, not disadvantages, but we're talking about power. Thank you very much for being with us today. You come to Istanbul, you're welcome. I hope that you're enjoying your time here, all of you. And I want to now pass floor to my second panelist, Rizwana Hamid. And it's also very amazing to say that you have 35 years of experience. Wow. It's a very long time. So before coming that, I want to introduce you. She's a journalist, a filmmaker. Actually, she's everything, an activist, producer for very important TV channels like BBC Channel 4. And also you are a award filmmaker. And you just also, apart from that, you have an also activist personality, and you are monitoring media, and you are director of a, if I'm not saying, Muslim Council of British Center for Media Monitoring, and you are monitoring media for responsible and accurate reports on Muslims and Islam, and this is really needed. Sometimes we have the same problem in even Turkey. This is a Muslim country, but because of stereotypes, because of agencies are sometimes spreading some kind of disinformation, lots of misrepresentation, especially on Muslims and Islam, and so you are monitoring this. This is very important. And how should we report on Muslim and Islam? What are you monitoring? Thank you.
Just the last bit, did you say how are we monitoring?
How should we monitor?
Oh, how should we monitor? Okay. Thank you for that introduction, and I'd just like to thank KADEM for having organized this and for all the inspirational women that are out there and who I've a bit closer, okay, that I've met, so thank you for that. In terms of monitoring the media, why monitor the media? Because I would say that media is probably the most influential medium through which perceptions, opinions, and lifestyles are formed. And I include in the media social media, mainstream media, film, entertainment, arts, etc. And we can see the impact that that has on people's perceptions through the monitoring that we're doing. So on a daily basis, I mean, we monitor hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of articles and television broadcast clips. And to date, I think we've analyzed over 50,000, 60,000. So it's a substantial body of work that we have. And the reason why we decided to monitor the media, apart from its influence, is that there's growing evidence, especially in the West, that shows how the media reports on Muslims and Islam is actually impacting and increasing hostility towards Muslim people, as well as hate crime. And by monitoring it, what we can do is have an evidence base with which we can then engage with media outlets like the BBC, whether it's CNN, whether it's any media outlet throughout the world, to show them the kind of tropes that are being perpetuated about Muslims and Islam on a daily basis. And whereas they, a decade ago, would have been on the dark corners of the web, on far-right platforms, what we've seen in the recent years is all of these tropes are moving into mainstream media. They are being propagated by politicians, by personalities, by opinion formers, and they're impacting on people's lives. And the kind of tropes that are out there, you know, that Islam is a threat to the West, that obviously Muslims are terrorists, women are oppressed, the far-right theory of the grand replacement, that somehow the migration of Muslims into Europe and Britain is part of a greater plan to increase the population and take over Europe and then impose Islam onto the population. And we've seen that Islamophobia globally has grown and has impacted both on men and women. But when it comes to women, we can see how, whether it's in China, and because of the forced sterilization and forced marriages of Muslim women to non-Muslim men in order to decrease the Muslim population, whether it's in India or France or Scandinavia, Switzerland, where they're introducing laws that ban the hijab, whether it's the increase of hate crimes, we can see that Islamophobia is widespread and there is a global attack on Muslims and on our religion. But by monitoring the media, what we can do is gather that evidence base. And I think without an evidence base, because I could say to, you know, a channel, look, you generalize about Muslims, or the images that we see about women are negative. But until I show them, and the minute that we show them the evidence base, they can't say anything, because we're showing them concrete examples of how the media is perpetuating false myths, othering Muslims and Islam, creating us as the enemy within and without, and therefore not only impacting on Muslims' lives, but also creating divisions within societies themselves. And I think that globally is one of the biggest phenomena that we're facing.
You mentioned about Islam and Muslims misrepresentation, and you specifically talk about forced marriages or some kind of hijab issues, but you can specify how the global media is creating a figure of Muslim women.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, there's the media, there's social media, there's celebrities, there's influencers, there's government policies, and then there's education. And all of these institutions together are perpetuating a certain image of the Muslim woman. And the Muslim woman, especially the Muslim woman who wears the hijab, has no agency, she's oppressed, she has no voice, she only remains in the home, she has nothing to offer to society, she's a victim. So all of these images are constantly perpetuated about the Muslim women. And for me, one, as a filmmaker, as a journalist, who's kind of traveled the world, covered wars, seen historic events like the end of apartheid, the coming down of the Berlin Wall, I've been there amongst men, directing men, being the head of the team, to have that perception of me, number one, as a professional woman, and then of my mother, who I see as the most strongest role model in my life. A woman who was a mother, she didn't go out to work, but she was a homemaker, she educated us, she nursed us, she gave us our values, she gave us a moral compass, and she fought for us. We're 5 sisters and 1 brother. Each and every one of us chose the profession that we wanted to do, and we went out into the world and we did it because of the support of my mother and my father. So when the media portrays Muslim women as having no agency, for me, I'm surrounded by Muslim women who are doing wonderful things. I mean, this environment in itself just shows the incredible things that Muslim women are doing. But to come to the invisible and the visible, the problem with the media is we will not see women like us in the media because we don't fit the preconceived ideas of what we should be. So if you're professional, if you're doing things, if you're pioneering, if you're groundbreaking, or even if you're just a strong mother who's fighting to keep her family intact, to educate them, you won't see those voices in mainstream media. We'll be talked about, we'll be talked to, but we'll never be given the agency, or then we'll only be invited on if it's to do with Islam or the hijab or honor killings or forced marriages, but nothing about, you know, being a geologist or being a kind of a pioneering lawyer or, you know, being an amazing filmmaker or whatever. We are boxed into an image, and this image is of us being oppressed and having no agency, and that's what we need to start breaking down by telling other stories. And with the Centre for Media Monitoring, what we do is we don't only monitor the media to create an evidence base and then kind of challenge the media, and I'm challenging my own peers because it's my profession. I'm not going to allow my profession to represent me and my community in the way that they do. But we also say that the onus is on us as Muslims as well. So we train up Muslim organizations, Muslim women, in how to engage with the media. So if you're an organization, you know, we teach them how to write press releases, how to conduct interviews, how to get your messages across. What do you say? How do you kind of avoid being taken down a rabbit hole by presenters who want to kind of take you back to that old narrative, how to challenge them. So we're empowering women, we're empowering Muslim organizations, but we're also challenging the very powerful institution of the media.
Well, you talk about in your family a line of production. You know, it's kind of produced in your grandmother, self-esteem, self-consciousness, and it is transferred through generations. But not every, especially in minorities, not everybody is as lucky as that. And the secular culture has a claim of being homogeneous, being for including everyone. It's being for all, like the big trends. So especially in the social media, the legitimacy is coming from for all, like homogeneous. But actually, this culture and this claim of homogeneity is also excluding a great amount of the societies. And we are talking about invisible actors. And in these invisible actors, we have rural women, we have women with lots of disadvantages, economic disadvantages, disabilities, and this and that. Especially for Muslim young girls, how it is affecting them positively or negatively. Of course, it seems negatively, but how is it affecting for the next generation, creating a self-esteem for self-consciousness as you just take from your family and able to produce it? How can we reproduce it within this kind of environment, which is very much affected, especially by social media legitimacy of being homogeneous?
I mean, I think, you know, social media and things kind of impacts people on different level, and the media does as well. You know, are you an urban woman? Are you a rural woman? Are you from the east? Are you from the west? Are you from the north of the hemisphere, the south of the hemisphere? You know, so I think it impacts us. It's very difficult to say that the impact on women is a general, even though there are generalities. But I think in terms of empowerment, in terms of women being able to fulfill the kind of resources that we have and to achieve what we're capable of achieving, I think we need to stop, and this might be kind of controversial, we are victims, but I think our state of mind impacts on how we meet the oppressor. And it's very much about, one, changing states of mind so that you are not on the defensive, you are who you are, you claim who you are, and you present yourself as you want to be presented. When it comes to people, let's say, who don't have a voice, people who are in rural areas, people who live in dire poverty and basically they're just trying to survive. If you're facing a famine in Somalia at the moment, right, whether you're a woman or a man, your basic instinct is, I've got to feed my child. That's all you're thinking about. And we kind of tend to see the world through an urban Western prism because that's the world that we live in. But I think if we also, in terms of empowerment, go back to our religion, that Islam teaches us to respect women. The best of men are those who respect their women, in terms of rights that are afforded onto women. It's not the religion, it's the cultures and the interpretation of these rulings within the Quran that are misinterpreted, and that's why we have a situation now where even in Muslim countries, when I came to Turkey and I go to Muslim countries, on some levels I think, it's so nice not to have to explain yourself, because when you're in the West as a Muslim person, you're constantly fighting, you're constantly having to kind of stand up for who you are, what you believe in, and that right. Whereas you have that, but then it suddenly occurred to me, you face different problems. Within Muslim environments and societies, women can face even greater problems. Whether that's because you live in Saudi and you're not allowed to drive, but now you are, whether it's because you have to be with a mehram, whether because you're not given those rights. So we all have our battles. It doesn't matter where we live. But I think for those of us that are in a position of some level of power, who have a voice, it's incumbent on us to bring the rest of the women that are behind us, on the side of us, together to move forward. And strength comes through unity. And I think there's a lot of lack of unity sometimes when it comes to women. And I think it's about really capitalizing on the strength that we do have as sisters to move each other forward. I didn't quite answer your question, but I've kind of...
Well, that's fine, thank you. Please, go on. Closing remarks? It's okay.
I could go on forever, so let's...
Just one thing came to my mind. You just very well explained who is targeted by the media and its negative effects of the...
I'm having real difficulty because it's bouncing.
Because we are close to each other. Microphone is most probably organized for the room to hear us, but I will be a bit louder. That you very well explain us who is targeted by the media and its social problems and effects and its the capacity loss. But for looking at the West and talking about kind of secular zealotry, also you mentioned about the bigotry in Muslim countries. But I can say that not because I'm Turkish, because I traveled a lot as a journalist. Turkey is the best example among Muslim countries, comparing to other Muslim countries, for Muslim women representation and empowerment. And maybe we are lucky with that. We have to celebrate it. But yes, we have also problems in other Muslim countries for women freely be empowered and becoming a part of the social life, not only work life or academic life, but the social life. Thank you very much for your presentation. It was a very fruitful and straightforward discussion. And now I want to pass microphone to my third speaker, Waad Al-Khatib. My pronunciation is right, okay? And her story is also very interesting. I would like to hear. You left Syria in 2016, and now you are living in London. Waad Al-Khatib is also a director, a filmmaker, award-winning filmmaker. And her documentary for Sama won awarded by different festivals and different documentary awards. And I want you to talk about your documentary, but I want to also mention your current work. You're also working about Olympic refugee team. So this will be a part of your story as well. And also, she's an activist and advocating for Action for Summer campaign. Could you please tell about your story, how and why you left Syria, and what you are doing now, and about the story of Sema, which is very much related to your story, I know. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. My story started 11 years ago when the Syrian revolution started. I was part of the protest in Syria. I proudly joined other people in the street chanting for freedom and for dignity. And in that year, we had so much hope that things would be better. I still have that hope until today, although the situation is really hard and bad in Syria until this single day. For Sama as a film was not just like my film, was my life, the life of so many Syrian people. And I think people, when they watch the film, they can understand a lot about what we've been through, not just as individual, but as community, as a whole country. And I think we can also maybe affect or like understand or imagine the effect that could cause like for all the next generations who are coming as well. I did the film and I thought at so many times I won't be able to do it when I was in Syria, but also after I lost Aleppo, my city, and I was displaced out of Syria. The film itself became like my tool of keep going, of fighting. I think so many people around the world still like interested, and they still want to see and understand, you know, what happened in Syria and maybe what's happening in other countries as well through the film itself. Yeah, maybe that's.
Maybe you can detail about your documentary, Sama, for Sama.
Yeah, so for Sama tells the story of my family, me, my daughter, and my husband for 5 years. And other people who were in the hospital where my husband was working, in schools where I used to go, and in the community, you know, where we tried to build an alternative life for us under the whole bad circumstances of shelling, bombing by the Syrian regime, Bashar al-Assad, and Iran, Hezbollah, and Russia as well. I think they have the trailer if they want to show the trailer, maybe.
Do we have the trailer? I wasn't informed that, but if you have the trailer, could you please show the video? Yes.
بحلب مدينتي. لسه عم صور. هذا الشيء اللي عم بيخلي معنى لوجودي. ما حدا منا كان عنده أي فكرة كيف رح تتغير حياتنا للأبد. حمزة أنا حامل.
سما سما
سما عملت هالفيلم مشانك. بدي إياك تفهمي شو اللي كنا عم نقاتل مشانه.
بحبك كثير أكثر من
أصلا في ضرب كثير اليوم. سما أنا بعرف إنك عم تفهمي شو عم بصير. بقدر أشوف هالشي بعيونك. ما عم تبكي مثل أي طفل عادي. هذا الشيء اللي عم يحرق لي قلبي.
حتسامحيني؟
Congratulations, but I should say that it's deeply hurting, especially as a person who visited Aleppo in 2010 when everything was fine and I just going around restaurants, a city of thousands and thousands years old with many historical venues and places and buildings, and seeing how it is torn down after the war. And it's kind of heartbreaking. And you left Aleppo after the city was bombed and fell into the regime, and then you moved to London. So how was your life there? What were the challenges? You have a professional career, you're a filmmaker, but still leaving your country, changing your communities, everything is a great challenge for you. How did you feel?
The main thing I had to do, after we were displaced out was finding a meaning, trying to, keep, the reason why I survived and why so many people around me also survived. And I think this was a question we always had, who we are, our identity, without home, without the place where you were born, without the place where you speak the same language. You have just to create everything from scratch, without any help, alone. And part of that, feeling of we have to keep going is resilience. That we're not accepting that we lost. We're not accepting that we're no longer going back, maybe. And it was very important, what Balqis was talking about with identity and stereotype, because I think, I've faced several conflict between who I am and what I'm doing in my life. And, the idea that when I was in Aleppo, I was putting al-hijab, and that wasn't my own choice, it was because of the situation in that area where I was. But at the same time, when I went outside and I became in London, I felt more my identity as a Muslim woman, because sometimes the stereotype of if you have hijab, so you are Muslim. If you don't have hijab, you are not Muslim. But we in Syria, same I think in Turkey, this is not one without the other. You can be the one you want, you can believe in the things you want without really showing this, or people can judge you from far. One of the main things I had to create even in London was the family, how can I teach my daughters the Arabic, which for us very important as Muslim and as Arab people, how I can teach them the culture, the food even we eat, because you are facing now a totally new life, and you want them to be safe, you want them to be not conflicted, you want them to feel stable, but at the same time you want to save your history and save where you come from, and remind yourself sometimes where did you come from and where do you want to go as well. So I think, and you work with so many women even here in Turkey, there is a lot of challenges.
Exactly. I was just planning to ask you a last question about other Syrian women. You have a professional career, you speak English, and then it can be a bit easier for you. Even though Istanbul is a refugee-friendly city. So here we have hosting millions of Syrian refugees, but especially KADEM has a special project on working with not only Syrian refugees, but other refugees, educating and also making some workshops in order to make them to become a part of the social life, earn their money. But when you look at deeply to most of the women coming from rural areas, very small communities, never and never able to manage a household. So because it's not the women issues for most of the family types to manage the household, when they are coming without men, with children and elders of the family. And when they are coming here, they have to live in a metropole. It's a very complex city. Sometimes I just, can't find my way in Istanbul. Even I was born here. So it will be very hard and very challenging. It's also trauma, and all of the rest of the family members, especially children, have a different trauma of war, And elders has another trauma because they are living with their memories left behind. So women have to manage all of these, and it's a great challenge. What about other Syrian women who doesn't have the same potential, same capacity like you have?
I feel like I'm one of the luckiest people who left. I still have my family. I'm able to start my life from the beginning. And I think at the same time, like, people just need to understand more that refugees, Syrians or non-Syrians from so many other countries, like, they need first safety, they need stability, they need just like a little bit of safe space to be able, you know, like, to live their life. I mean, it will never be normal, it will never be as it was before, but they have no other choice, you know, they have to start over, they have kids, they have a future, you know, like, people didn't leave because they just woke up one day and they felt we want to leave. There was so many things, and I really hope people can watch the film and understand more what I'm really talking about. But it's something you really mentioned and was amazing, like unity, you know, and people be together. As women, we can feel other women, you know. If we have children, we can feel other mothers and their struggle on daily basis, like people around the world, even when you have your normal life, and when you have your family, where you didn't had to leave, they're challenging every single day, and we're all facing this. So think about the people who, even in worst scenario and worst like situation, had to just leave everything behind with all this trauma you were talking about and just start over again. So we need to be with each other, we need to help each other, we need just to feel sympathy, you know, feel humanity with these people.
Unfortunately, the Syrian crisis is the most biggest humanitarian crisis of our century, and we are facing it. Maybe Turkey is doing its best, but for the rest of the world, just watching, and it is getting harder in every day. And I hope that at the closest time, it will soon, very recently, but unfortunately it's creating also very different human stories as you are portraying with us. But it's also very important, very valuable that you share your experiences with the rest of the world. And I think that these kind of productions will also make a great contribution for understanding what's happening in Syria. Thank you very much.
I think, you know, like, a place like this today is a very, like, it's amazing space to share these kind of stories, because, like, I think every woman in this room knows at least one Syrian or other, like, nationality who now Turkey is their home now. And maybe this home is temporary, maybe forever, no one knew. Like you just mentioned, it's been 11 years. So how can we reach out to these people? How can we, like, understand, you know? And just like, I think even what is happening in Ukraine now is a big example about you never know when your life will flip upside down. And of course, you know, when this happened, you don't want to be left alone. You don't want to be like to feel you are like threatened every single day, even when you reach safety, that you will be displaced again. So I really like urge you all, you know, to reach out to people around you, to even within the Turkish community, to have more like awareness about why these people are here, to teach your children at school to not be, you know, like talking to Syrian kids at school about like go back to your country or like all of this racism issues. And I really hope we can make a big difference altogether.
Yes, and unfortunately, the world is facing an increasing anti-migration sentiments. Governments are falling down in Europe because of that. Brexit is happening, and migration is changing a lot.
Yeah.
But it's also another issue of another very long discussion. Thank you very much for your valuable contribution. And Reşat Strik, I'm pronouncing your name right, okay? And you are our last speaker because you're a gentleman, a woman first, and then you are already a known person, both in Turkey and worldwide. And also he understands Turkish. Be careful while you're just taking photos with him. he has a good command of English, but Turkish, but we will be talking English today. And you're from Australia. You become a part of very important productions. You participated in TV series, TV shows, but you also settled for a while in Turkey. I'm sorry, I have to correct myself. we changed the name of our country, Turkey, not Turkey. But it's sometimes how we get accustomed to speaking in English. So in Turkey, you settled here. And we know you from this glorious, famous Diriliş Ertuğrul, Resurrection Ertuğrul. You appeared there as a guest actor. And then you became a part of the TRT project. You are, I can call you as a colleague from TRT. And you become a part of this project, the new member of the family. And it was a documentary. And I want you to talk about this project. And also, after talking about this, I want you to, through this project, settling here, you have an opportunity to observe what's going around. So please talk about your observations, your understanding of comparing the Muslim women that you see here and your experiences in abroad. Thank you.
Kusura bakma, benim sesim gitti. Ama İngilizce konuşacağım. Okay, tamam. So, what's that?
Go on, please.
I have chai. Okay, so the last, to talk about my project and traveling is, I think I should go a little bit before that. My father is Bosnian, and he is an immigrant to Australia. He came out to Australia in 1965, something like that. My mother's Australian, Irish, Welsh background Australian, and my mother came from quite an affluent family, and my father was an immigrant, so it was a bit of a clash in terms of culture. And my mother converted to Islam, which is also something quite different, because just back in those days, in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s, it was kind of a weird thing for an affluent Australian. So, growing up with my father and my mother in our household, it was very colorful. We had a lot of Muslims from all over the world coming to our house. So we got to see a lot of cultures from an early age, and to experience that, it was phenomenal, because we learned about so many different countries and cultures and political problems and social problems, and this was really important to us. We didn't learn too much about women, because I have 3 brothers, and the only woman in our family was our mother, but we treasured our mother, and she's absolutely amazing. She's the rock of our family, really, because Islam is the main foundation in our family, and our Islam pretty much came through our mother, because our mother converted to Islam, and from there she pretty much taught my father. And
I'm sorry, could you please speak a bit closer to the
closer?
microphone?
Okay.
Thank you.
Is that okay?
Sorry for forcing you to speak.
No, it's okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Is that better? That's worse. Okay, is that better? Okay. All right, so I was fortunate enough after that, growing up with my family, to live in America. From there, I moved to Bosnia and got married in Bosnia. I have 3 kids. I have 2 daughters and a son. And I was very fortunate after that to come to Turkey and to see Turkey. And I saw in the entertainment industry, Hollywood. I lived in Hollywood, I worked in Hollywood for 5 years. And then after that, I pretty much moved to Bosnia, then to Turkey, and worked in Turkey. Now I'm back in Bosnia. A little bit confusing, but that's my life. So, in terms of traveling and seeing different cultures, I was very fortunate. In the last 5 years, I've been working on a show called Yeni, which means a new member of the family. And with that, it's been incredible to see different cultures, especially in the third worlds, and to see families and family structures and how families are around the world is absolutely, it's so appealing. It's such a beautiful thing to see, and because you still see great family structure, because the feminism hasn't really kicked in, you know. So it's something that I really applaud, and I'm attracted to, and I've always been attracted to. And when you see that, when you see such a beautiful house, you know, a poorest family, a really, really poor family, but you see such a beautiful, happy father, happy wife, happy children, happy community, happy neighbors. I mean, you're attracted to it. And I don't know why, but these people have absolutely nothing, but they're such a good system, so they haven't been so affected. And I think that comes when you get affected because of society in this Western world. We have expectations and we always want more. We want more and more and more, and it's like this American dream that we're chasing. And unfortunately that has a ripple effect, and that goes into your family, and that gets into your husband's head or your wife's head, and people want more, and it's just expectations. Unfortunately, dunya look, it's like dunya. So seeing women in places like Philippines, where majority of them are the workers there, and men are just sitting and watching cockfights and barely working. It's I don't know. I'm so shocked at seeing that. That was just like, I couldn't believe how strong they were there in the Philippines. Indonesia was something that was a little bit more balanced. Indonesia, Malaysia, they were more, you have the husbands that are doing a lot of the working, the hunting and the providing, but the women are amazing. Ghana was the top of the list for me when I went to Ghana. In Ghana, the women are walking every day 2 to 4 kilometers with about 20 liters or 20 kilos, 20 liters to 40 liters of water on their heads for like 2 to 4 kilometers every day because they need water. And the men are out working, farming, working, hunting, whatever. But the women come back and they are like Amazonian women. They're like huge, they're like strong, they're so fit, their spine is amazing, their body structure, their posture is amazing because they're carrying all this water on their heads. And it's, I cried in Ghana when I saw those women, when I saw how hard they have it, and how like they provide, they work, they do the cooking, they're so communal, and they're so obedient. That it was just very tearful for me when I was there. So.
Well, you explained the differences, and you're talking about the individualistic lifestyle in the West, like consuming, give me everything, and then when you just come to these geographies, you just find good, nice families. But is it there is a kind of disruption in these family types because of the widely used social media and its norms and its effects on women especially? How is it because you are working in different kind of audiovisual, you have films, you have TV shows, so you have a great deal with all of these, all of the effects of these with TV shows, series, social media. It's a bit kind of attacking to this kind of family types, especially imposing some norms and standards over women.
Yeah, absolutely. You have, my voice came back. So, you have media, audio-visual media, for a long time has been controlled by big corporations, and they will be putting out their narrative how they want it to be, and they will censor. And then they'll censor things like Israel, Philistine, Palestine, Israel, things like that. And however, now we have social media that's kicked in. Now social media, firstly we have to understand how social media is working before we talk about how it affects. So social media can be the worst thing to humanity in ways that you have it's kind of like a drug. You're waking up every morning like the dopamine, that the chemical in your brain, you're waking up every morning and you need to check what you need to check, and when you go to sleep and it's like you're hitting, and you just checked it like 3 seconds ago, but you're checking again. It's like so dangerous for us because our chemical reaction in our brain that's going on and on. So it can be really dangerous for people that don't know how to use it, especially the youth. So what is on social media is, before the media, they used to put out on television, on magazines and newspapers, they used to put out the narrative, what they wanted. On social media, the way it works is that probably only 1% of what's on social media is real, or maybe what you're seeing is only 1% of the actual real story. So when you watch social media, you're watching something that's so perfect, something that's so manicured, something that's so beautiful, something that's so photoshopped. And here we are, we're in our boring lives. I'm watching someone that has so much success, an amazing car, amazing house, amazing holidays, everything, and I'm naturally wanting that. I'm like, wow, I wish, it's my kind of dream. And so how does this trickle down to effects for women and parents and for children? I mean, you could divide families. I mean, when you have parents that are working, naturally working, and honorable places in their household, providing, and they start thinking that they want something else. They're looking at something else that's more to life, because it's fake, it's on social media, and they automatically, this could start an effect inside of the family union that could break up a family. And that's ideal. I mean, the Western world ideally do not want to have strong families. I mean, because it's not part of their narrative, especially in Muslim cultures. So when you see Muslim cultures, when you see Muslim cultures on television, I mean, it's atrocious, because they're always going to have a woman that's a Muslim woman with hijab. She's, even on Turkish television or around the world, she's either a full uneducated or a cleaner, service, something really, really low. You never have, we probably never will have, inshallah one day we will have, but we never have a woman that's superhero, that's like a Marvel superhero mother or something like that. You never have that leader Muslim woman, because it's just not part of the narrative of Google, Twitter, Facebook. It doesn't sell. And they're actually up against these women that are taking everything off, their clothes, everything. To unfortunately, sex sells. And that's just, I think it's appalling that you have the sex lifestyle and that's selling, and that's what I'm up against with my kids. And my kids, I'm battling with them every day about what they wear and how they wear. It's really hard. So.
It's creating a narrative, as you said, and it's not always creating positive results out of this narrative. And it's like a podium that everybody's walking there with their best garments, best faces, best attitudes, but it's not always like that, and it's unfortunately disrupting the families. Thank you very much for your very valuable contribution. It's a very fruitful discussion, all of you. Now we have a few questions from the room, and I want to direct you, all of you, of course. Some of them are directed by name, but there is a very personal question to you, Belkıs, so I will just direct it to you. And Şüheda Mercan is asking this question, and she's asking you, when you feel alone, how you struggle with it. Can you give some advices to young Muslim women how to struggle when they just feel lonely? As far as I understand, this loneliness is not something you're personal, but as you know, you just tired, you just, can't feel the power to fight for it. So how do you motivate yourself?
Yeah, well, that's definitely a deep question. And Sister Rizwana did mention it earlier when she said, you're in a constant state of battling, trying to speak up for yourself when you feel like nobody's hearing you. And I can personally say, for 4 years during my battle against FIBA and trying to get them to uplift this hijab ban that they had in place, at one point, I did feel lonely because I was the only one trying to get past this ban so that I could play basketball. But one thing that helped me push forward, number one, was the strength of my mother. The strength of my mother to see what she went through. She was a single mother of 6 at one point in her life. She worked overnight. She homeschooled all of us.
You are 6 brothers and sisters.
I'm the youngest of 8.
You are the youngest.
4 sisters, 3 brothers, mashallah.
You have 6 brothers and sisters.
No, 5 sisters, 1 brother.
Me too,
We have, mashallah.
5 sisters and 1 brother. We have, coming from crowded families.
It's a big family. And when you have someone to look up to who comes from strength, you have no excuse but to push forward, right? So when you feel that loneliness, what helped me push through was, number one, the strength of my mother, but was also the people or the girls who looked like me who were gonna come after me. So whoever asked that question and whoever feels lonely, you have to think about who you're going to help. Sometimes you have to step outside of your own selfish thoughts and think about what's next and who's next. And when I felt that sense of loneliness, that's what pushed me forward. There was a young girl who, when I did my first speaking engagement, I became this motivational speaker. When I did my first speaking engagement, it was at a Sunday school at a masjid. And she came to me, she had on the same uniform that I wore, she had her ball, and she was looking at me the whole time I spoke. She thought I was this famous person, it was amazing. And when I saw her, I said, if I don't push through this dark feeling that I was having or this questioning of who I was, who else is gonna do it for her?
Great, lovely, thank you very much. Because we keep talking about future here, as far as I say. You mentioned about the future life of the families, you mentioned about the future of Syrians, you mentioned about the future of social media and all of the rural people, and you're talking about the next generation, and this is the power, this is the real empowerment, not looking back, not concentrating on negativities, but looking far behind, leaving far behind and then looking forward. So a question for you, now the question is exactly about your presentation. And I ask you some kind of similar question, but you can detail a bit. One people from our audience is asking an unnamed question. What can we do for people, women especially, with completely out of capacity to reach out to some kind of resources, to cities, to explain themselves, to completely in a disadvantaged position in the world? It can be dire economic poverty, it can be because of lack of access, technological problems, culture, or this and that. So how can we reach out these women? How can we reach out this? Sometimes I am adding something to this question. Sometimes we don't need to go too far in remote areas of the world to look for this kind of women. Sometimes they are in the very crowded communities, voiceless women, selfless women, who cannot talk about on behalf of themselves. How can we reach out these women?
Thanks for that question. I think it's interesting because we complain that often when it comes to the media that we are not given a voice, and either Western women or men or people who are not us are speaking on our behalf. And as urban women, I think we do the same to women who are from rural areas or who may be uneducated or who haven't had the same opportunities, and we assume that somehow we're better than them, that we know more than them, that we're more powerful than them. And I think it's about, one, being very humble, two, being respectful, and three, actually listening to people's experiences, understanding what resources they have, because they're very different, but in many ways, their resources are often greater than ours because of the situation that they find themselves in. And then it's not about necessarily empowering them, but it's about giving the necessary tools that they need in order for them to better their own lives. So it's not about me going in there or you going in there from your experience as an urban woman. It's about listening, and then it's about facilitating, and it's about supporting, and it's about giving tools. I think once you give people the opportunity, the resources, and the necessary know-how, people are quite capable of making their own decisions, improving their lives. But the problem is that from governments, through to the media, through to us, as people who live in urban areas, anybody who kind of falls outside of the paradigm, unfortunately, is ignored and forgotten. And I think, it manifests itself in different ways. So within one country, even if you come from a Western country where the division between rural and urban is not so great, you'll still find a division between those that are kind of in the metropolis and in the capital, and then those that are kind of further away. There's a lack of development and a lack of equity and equality and opportunity. And it's about spreading that, and ultimately governments should be doing that. I mean, they're the ones that we have to hold to account first and foremost, because they hold the purse strings, they make the policy decisions, and they have the power to create the kind of infrastructure which allows each and every single human being and woman to fulfill her full potential. Because I believe each and every one of us, it doesn't matter how educated you are or you're not, where you live, we each have a potential in us. And once that potential is respected, recognized, and opened up, we can fulfill that. But a lot of people are denied that, and I think that's the problem. But it's up to us, as women. I mean, the great thing is here that every single kind of woman that I've listened to on a panel or spoken to, every single person is trying to do something to help other women. And I think that's the only way that it can happen. That's the only way. On our own, we can do nothing. Exactly. It's when we pull together and we think of the other and we want to uplift everybody else. I can't enjoy where I am if I'm seeing other people in situations that I wouldn't want to be in. So it's about, uplifting and pulling together and working together.
And this is also what our religion, Islam, asks for, caring for others. Thank you very much. It's a very deep answer. They're living their own life. And a question for you, Wad Al-Khatib, about your documentary for Sama. We watched in trailer, and you were telling you keep filming. But how did you decide to turn it to a documentary and deliver it to the world and to be known? and what was the motivation to make a documentary out of what we're living from war memories?
Yeah, so I did so many news reports, like short clips with Channel 4 News in the UK, and that's when I was still in Aleppo. And when we were displaced out, I had a very strong reaction toward everything happened. I felt really disappointed. I felt there's no meaning of everything. I felt like the whole world was watching and they let this happen. And people don't really care, and why I would even try to tell people anything if they knew everything. And I felt like, I'm not gonna do anything. I don't want to do anything. But then I think even maybe 5 minutes later, I had exactly the opposite feeling. I've done all of this until here. I survived. I have to do something. Even if no one will listen to this story, I have to make it for my daughters. I have to make it for the people who were in Aleppo. And this strong feeling drive me to do the film. I met with people at Channel 4 News. We had more conversation about even the process of the film, because I wasn't a filmmaker before this. And I learned a lot through that process. And then 2 years after that, the film was ready to take out to the world. But also here, when the film was ready, we've been told a lot that no one will come to watch another Syrian film. No one will come to watch another film with blood and death. And I quite accept that. At that time, I was like, I'm okay, even if this is what's gonna happen. And when the film was out, the first screening was in the US, South by Southwest in Texas. And I was very shocked on how people reacted to the film. I was sitting down among the audience waiting to count how many people would leave before the film will finish. Because I understand it's very heavy and it's a lot of blood, it's a lot of death, but I wanted to show people the reality of what happened, and for me was a lot of...
It's sometimes first world problems that always want to watch nice things, entertaining you and lovely things, but life is not like that, yeah?
Yeah, but life is mixed between this happy moments and also this horror, and my personal life was exactly 1 second up, the other second is down, and that's, I think, for so many people, it's part of life, and I really wanted just to show that reality, which I know was really, really difficult and hard. But people reacted to the film in an amazing way, and even, the film was out in 2019, and just a couple of months ago, we started screening in Turkey, and, I mean, usually any film, Richard, it's 1 year and a half mostly, and then the film will be in the library. And the film is still, until now, being screened all over the world. People want to watch, people want to talk about it. And this has just given me some feeling that I'm able to do something, although, the situation is still very bad.
That's very great. So the reaction is good. So because this is happening, this is the life, or part of the life, and also some people spontaneously living this. While we're just sitting here, some people are living some different kind of miseries. So we can't close our eyes. We can't, eyes wide shut to all of these humiliation of the humankind in this, that way. So the message is very strong, as far as I understand, of your documentary. And one last question for you. It's about the Hollywood cinema, or the contemporary cinema, the popular cinema. How you find the representation of minority women, especially Muslim women, let's say, in the contemporary cinema, especially big broadcasters?
Unfortunately, minorities, Muslim women, I'm just so bored of seeing victims and beaten women and raped. There's so many amazing stories about, honorable stories about motherhood or survival, stuff like that, or just so many success stories out there. It's so depressing. Whenever I see a woman hijab in cinema or something, I already have that expectation of it's going to be a cliche, oppressive, you know. Unfortunately, I think for the future, I would love to see, I would really love to see good Muslims in cinema, whether Muslim men and women, because even the men I don't like. I mean, sorry, it's just, when I watch these historical dramas, unfortunately, please, enough of the secularist portraying a Muslim who still is a secularist portraying a Muslim, because it bothers me as an actor, a professional actor, who, when I'm playing a policeman, I'm going to go and portray a policeman, right? I'm going to go and do my study, you know, go follow a policeman, see how he walks, see what he wears and all that, see how he cleans himself, shaves and everything, and I'll play a policeman. But seeing, especially in Turkish cinema, Turkish TV, you see these people who are portraying Muslims, I just don't feel they're Muslims. They're not representing Islam at all, because I see them, I just go, this guy doesn't know anything about Islam, unfortunately. So going back to the original question, I would love to see amazing stories about women, because there are so many amazing stories about women in Islamic stories, and I really hope that for the future. I really, really hope that for TRT, I hope that for other channels, I hope that for cinema, because we have such a rich history, Islamic, pre-Islamic, so many amazing stories. I mean, the eggs on our face for not doing anything, I mean, really. So, inshallah, we see that.
I'm very glad to see that someone is, talking about the amazing stories here, and also amazing women. Thank you very much for this. I think that we are running out of time, and this was a very amazing discussion with you. I learned a lot. Your contribution was very valuable, and it was a very fruitful discussion. And we also have time to answer the questions coming from the room. Thank you very much for your contribution, for being here, coming here in Istanbul. I hope that you will enjoy your time staying here in Istanbul. It's a very beautiful city. And thank you very much for spending your Saturday afternoon here with us, your patience and your understanding. I hope that next time, maybe somewhere else, we will be together and discussing deeper issues, because these are, all of them, by themselves, very large issues that we have to focus on. We will keep talking about this. Thank you very much for being with us. This is the end of our discussion.